city moved in against the protesters on the basis of Section 5, and it's a very odd situation. I have not come across this situation before in 30 years of practicing law, but basically the city moved against the protesters on the basis of a provision which does not exist.
Now, explain that. What's defective? What doesn't exist?
Section 5 of the bylaw deals with, at least apparently deals with installing, erecting, maintaining structure. That's the term the section uses, a structure on city property, on streets or sidewalks. But the part of the section that actually deals with, I don't know what I can say to you. It's not there. There was obviously when the bylaw was passed, a mistake was made. There was an administrative error. I assume it was an administrative error, but the bylaw was passed without the relevant provision. There is nothing in Section 5 of Bylaw T4 which prohibited the protesters from erecting a shelter, maintaining shelter on Phoenix Square.
But in other words, I'm not saying you can't do this. Is that what's not in there?
That's right. So basically it's a legislative scheme. It's set up. It's an offense-creating section. Basically, it has three parts. One part that says you can't do this. A second part, which is you get 3 days notice, and a third part which provides for a penalty if you don't do this. But that part of the provision of the section which is intended to say you can't do this, i.e. you can't install and erect a structure on public property, it's not there. And I can only assume that this is an embarrassment to the city, but legally the situation is that the city moved in against the protesters on the basis of a provision which, I'm speaking from 30 years of experience, the provision is not there. The provision on which they relied to remove the protesters isn't in the bylaw. And so something has gone very wrong here. I'm deeply concerned about this because it seems to me, from what I can see, we need to hear from the mayor, we need to hear from the city solicitor. The city has, certainly as far as I can see, misrepresented the bylaw. And there's there are deep issues here.
There are some other issues as well. You mentioned, for example, the timing of the notice, the 3-day notice, returning property.
Well, there was a notice issued by the Director of Engineering, which basically gave the protesters 3 days to leave. Of course, the mayor didn't wait 3 days. The mayor came in 2.5 days. Is that significant? Of course it's significant. I think there was a problem with the notice because the notice did not clearly stipulate why the protesters had to leave Phoenix Square. Having looked at the situation at some length, the reason the notice does not say why the protesters had to leave Phoenix Square is very simply because, at least as far as I can determine, because they hadn't violated Section 5 of the bylaw, because the provision which they are alleged to have violated somehow didn't make it through into the bylaw.
So this is, what about the city solicitor? Would not the city solicitor be aware of this?
I'm very troubled about it. I mean, professionally, as a member of the bar, for over 30 years, I have to wonder why the city solicitor, in all frankness, permitted this. The mayor, from what I can see, I've looked at the letter that was issued by the mayor, the notice from the Director of Engineering. The letter and the notice misrepresent the bylaw. The letter from the mayor, the notice from the Director of Engineering suggests that there is something in the bylaw, there's a provision in the bylaw which the protesters have violated. That is not the case.
You mentioned that this seems to be more a matter of politics than actual law.
I'm deeply concerned about the situation, I suppose, as a citizen, but also as a lawyer, as someone who takes my own professional responsibility seriously. It's not appropriate for the mayor to misrepresent the bylaw and to go in and take down the shelter and the sign put up by Occupy Fredericton on the basis of a misrepresentation of the existing law. That's deeply troubling, and yes, it's my professional view. I don't know what different individuals new at the time, but I would assume that the city solicitor was aware of the situation, and I have to ask, why did the city solicitor permit this? The city solicitor is an officer of the court. The city solicitor cannot stand by and allow the mayor to misrepresent the bylaw and to move in against the protesters on the basis, I keep saying it, but of a provision which simply put does not exist. The mayor should have come clean, and the city solicitor. The director of engineering should not have signed the notice that was signed. They should have all come clean. They should have said, we have a problem with the bylaw. The reality of the situation is, at least as far as I can determine, is that the reason that the city didn't move against the protesters for 3 months is because there's no provision in the bylaw which permits them to do so.
Okay, thank you. Just to get your name and position.
My name is Paul Groarke. I am a lawyer. I'm a member of the Law Society of Alberta, not the Law Society of New Brunswick. I'm a professor, a PhD in philosophy. I'm at St. Thomas University in the criminology department. I have a particular interest in the relationship between law and politics, which is why I originally was interested in this particular case. I must say too, I haven't really said much about the constitutional issue. Of course, this case was full of constitutional issues. My own regret is that this case was never put before a judge on the Court of Queen's Bench who could have dealt with all of the issues in the case and the constitutional issues. Why the city didn't simply put the matter before a court is quite frankly beyond me.
Okay, so I could call you a criminology professor at St. Thomas University?
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
And with
a lawyer with an
interest in politics and the law.
Yes, my PhD was dealt with the relationship between law and politics. And I am particularly concerned. There is a trend in Canada for people in political office to essentially, we live under, I mentioned in the lecture, of course, the preamble to the Charter of Rights says Canada was founded on principles that recognize the rule of law. The rule of law refers to the fact that people in political office have to act according to the law. If you're going to act against the protesters in Phoenix Square, you have to do it in accordance with the existing law. I have a very hard time. This is a situation where the mayor did not openly, honestly, frankly acknowledge the existing law, what the bylaw consisted of, and in my view, acted outside the rule of law.
All right, then. Thank you. Okay, no problem. Thank you.